Offensive coordinator Alex Van Pelt will now take over play calling duties. But wait, there's more. Browns also will be without Pro Bowl guard Joel Bitonio Sunday due to COVID. Brian Westbrook is joining us now. Brian, you played in 11 playoff games in your career. How much harder will it be for Baker and the Browns to pull off the upset with Kevin Stefanski out?
Well, good morning, Jenna. I think it's going to be very difficult. And it's difficult for a lot of different reasons. Even in a season where we've had so much uncertainty and so many changes because of COVID. And the reason why it's going to be so difficult is because players are naturally creatures of habit in their own routine, but also creatures of habit of what they consume. And so as a player, you're used to hearing from the head coach, hearing a directive, hearing what direction you guys are going to be headed in early in the morning. Then, of course, hearing his voice throughout practice and things like that. But you're also in the most critical moments in the game. You head to the sideline to talk to the head coach. That one voice that you can say, okay, if I listen to him, hopefully we'll be headed in the right direction. And so it's going to be a very different situation for the Browns. And there will be some uncertainty there in this situation. But I talked to a couple of people out there in Cleveland, and they have an awful lot of confidence in Alex Van Pelt. He's been around the league for a long time, 9 years as a player, 16 years as a coach. He's been around Aaron Rodgers for a few years out there in Green Bay. He is also credited for helping Baker Mayfield with his footwork this season, and we've seen how much Baker Mayfield has improved. And so I think they have an awful lot of confidence in him. Brandon, this is one thing that I think the Cleveland Browns will have to do, and I think this is a card that they'll certainly play, the underdog card, the mentality that nobody gives us a chance, nobody thinks that we can win, and we know how powerful that can be. We saw the Eagles play that card all the way to a Super Bowl in 2017, Nick, and I think that's something that the Browns will certainly have to play, and it is a powerful thing.
Yeah, I look at the AFC playoff picture, and I think there's two teams that pretty legitimately, obviously, are going to play the nobody believes in us card. The Browns because of this, and the Chiefs because obviously they haven't beaten a team by 2 scores in months, and Mahomes he's the 4th best quarterback in football, and I mean, who's picking them to even get to the Buffalo Bills in the championship game, much less beat them? So I agree with you, and that is a powerful card, the nobody believes in us card. I think this is a big deal. I think it's now, and that's nothing against Alex Van Pelt. And Jenna, you'll remember, Alex Van Pelt's the guy that Aaron Rodgers was furious Green Bay moved on from. Yep. Remember a few years ago, and Rodgers like, I can't even pick my quarterback coach. These guys are just doing everything. And so I think Van Pelt's got a good reputation. But, and Brandon alluded to this earlier, part of coaching is the situational. Do I go for this 4th down? Do I, what are the analytics here? And even if Stefanski has someone in his ear kind of telling him what the math is, it's the coach's job to pull the trigger. And the Browns have been good at that this year on doing the right thing analytically. And I think for Mike Prefer, who's going to be wearing that headset, your gut reaction when you're sitting in someone else's seat is do the safe thing. Do the thing I'm not going to be questioned about. Do the thing that everyone expects me to do. So I think that hurts them. I also think that nobody's picking the Browns to win the Super Bowl this year. This hurts their ability to win the Super Bowl next year because Stefanski isn't going to have playoff experience. As a coach, that's important, not just as a player, but as a coach. Now, he could get it if they win the game. Then all of a sudden he could be back for the following week. And, Brandon, I think Bitonio's a big loss. I think the way they run their football team, losing a Pro Bowl guard's a big loss. So I think all of this makes it far, far tougher for Cleveland. Right. It makes it far tougher for Cleveland to pull off what would be a pretty substantial upset.
Nick, I'll be honest with you. When the news broke that they weren't going to be with Stefanski, I was torn here because I was like, let me put my player hat on as if I'm still in that locker room. And I thought about it. I was like, hell, I've been on some teams where we'd have been better if we didn't have our head coach. And then I wanted to write a few things down.
That's right.
What are the intangibles that these coaches bring to the table and break it down and figure out, where does the Cleveland Browns lie? You think about leadership. I don't think they miss when it comes to leadership. I think teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Seattle Seahawks, while if you miss Coach Tomlin, if you don't have Coach Pete Carroll, that's a big deal. Because I would say their place of genius and where they really get it done is really making guys move in the same direction and getting people to just buy in. The other thing I thought about was game management, right? And that's what you just talked about, Nick. Now teams and coaches are trending towards having someone in the box in their ear. So Coach Prefer, special teams guy, like they're the best people in the building because they understand the entire picture. They have to. They understand offense, defense, obviously special teams in all situations. So I think they'll be fine there because he's good, and then they may have someone in the booth that can help him. Play calling is where I think they're really going to suffer, right? This is where Coach Stefanski really thrives and separates himself from a lot of guys in the league. There's other teams out there where if you take out McVay from the Rams, they're going to be in trouble. And it's the same situation here where it's like, man, third down, that feel, anybody can draw it up, but can you dial it up is the difference. People can get on the board and do X's and O's all day. But then when you get out there and it's 4th and 1, like you said, Nick, everything just gets tight and you don't pull the trigger. So I think they're going to suffer. And the last thing, Wilds, is experience. When you think about his experience sitting on the sideline, I know this is his first go around when it comes to being a head coach, leading the team to the playoffs. But he sat on the sidelines and saw Coach Zimmer lead his team to, leading up to the game, during the game, and after the game. So I do think they lose a little bit there when it comes to experience.
Yeah. So if it was me, Brandon, and I have very little NFL coaching experience, a few cup of coffees here and there. Don't get me wrong, Brian. I would dial it up all the way. I would dial it up all the way. The only parallel that we've seen is when Detroit was missing all their coaches, and Tom Brady's like, oh, okay, are we just playing a normal game? You should have done something really weird, because Tom Brady threw for 4 touchdowns and 350 yards in the first half because they're trying to play normal football. So, Brian, the closest parallel that I see to the Steelers defense is the Rams defense. So if I'm the coach, I'm like, you know what, guys? Let's go out and try to win the game. Baker, let's air it out. He had almost 50 attempts that game. Nick Chubb had almost 20 rushing attempts. Just go. Don't play like, oh, let's wait for the Steelers to make a mistake. Let's try to get a 12th round decision. Just try to just dial it up and just having what they call it in Google. They would talk about decision making in Google. They say like have a bias towards action. So when you're trying to decide like should we do it or should we not, have a bias towards doing it. So that's what I think the Browns should do. Like I don't think it matters if they lose the game. They have to be brave enough, I should say, to lose the game by 30 points. Don't try to do inch here, inch. Let's go the whole way. Let's try to win the game and be super aggressive. Again, I don't have a ton of coaching experience, but that would be my pro bono suggestion to the Browns.
Kevin, I'm laughing because we know that you don't have a lot of coaching experience. And now because of what you just laid out, we know why you don't have a lot of coaching experience. That's absolutely the worst advice you could possibly give to a football team. You go out there and do the